Hello, hello. Welcome to Renewed Mind Revolution podcast with your host, Mischelle Saunders. As always, it is my honor and my pleasure to be able to share some tips and some tools with you that I know will assist you in becoming a better you. I've been telling you guys that, we have a special guest coming up, and today is the day, and I'm so excited that she will be able to share her testimony and share something that I know will help someone out there who have a previous experience or some type of pain, some type of trauma, and they don't really see the end. She's going to show you that there is the end. She's going to show you that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that you too can come out of a trauma situation or some type of grave situation. Her name is Mischelle Saunders Gotch. Is that right? Is that all right? All right. I want to make sure that I got that name right. So she is here. She is the CEO, founder of Altar Stories Ministry, and podcast host of Altar Stories. Is that right? All right. And she is passionate about helping women to share their God stories to help women overcome their struggles. I want to get right into it. I don't want to talk a lot. I want you to talk and tell the listeners and myself a little bit about yourself. And then once you've done that, we can get right to the core of your experience as a child in the cult, correct?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
First and foremost, Mischelle, thank you for the honor to be on your show and the blessing of being able to share who I am. As you shared, I am the CEO and founder of Altar Stories Ministry, and we are a faith-based nonprofit that helps Christian women share their God stories around the world. In addition, I have I'm a host of the Altar Stories show. And we help women share their God stories on the show. So the reason I felt called to start the Altered Stories ministry show and the nonprofit that I founded was because I had quite a story of my own that I needed to share. And I didn't share it until I was a lot older in life. And because of that, I carried the story inside of me, and it caused a lot of different challenges in my life. For one thing, I was a workaholic beyond workaholic because I didn't want to deal with what I had come through and make admission that, it affected me.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of rage. I had an anger. I had a lot of anxiety. I struggled with trust and really had a hard time in my relationship with other Christians and in my relationship with God the Father because of what I encountered. So early on in my life, I was brought into a childhood. During my childhood, I was brought into a cult that my mom was involved with. And unfortunately, this cult started out to be all warm and friendly, welcoming. It was a church, a home group of people that were meeting, and my mom had friends that were part of it because my mom and dad were both Air Force. They were in the Air Force, and my mother was seeking and searching for a place to, feel comfortable with serving God because she was a baby Christian, and my dad was not into that. And so it was her friends that were her community, and of course they were affiliated with this group. So my mom started attending and brought my brother and myself and my baby sister. Long story short, the group started out welcoming, not too crazy. The leader, who was quite a bit older than his wife, was also someone who had I would say, charisma, and was also wanting to bring together other Christians into a family setting. And I think his intentions were all good at first.
Mhm.
And as what happens with people that really don't stay grounded, or there's not an accountability for them in other areas, he started getting off the beaten path and bringing in his agenda and his different perspectives on how to serve the Lord.
Mhm.
And so he became extremely, I would say, controlling, and, imposing lots of his beliefs into, the group and his followers. It was called the Ecclesia Group.
Okay.
And unfortunately, um, that led to abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. It led to a lot of abuse that the vulnerable people
Yeah.
were being exposed to, uh, all kinds of financial
Yeah.
abuse as well, I think. I mean, I'm just going to call it as it is.
Mhm.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it,
Please don't.
but yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, it is what it is. But, you know, um, my dad was in the military at that time. Like I said, he was overseas when the majority of this, he went to Germany and our family stayed back. And so when majority of this, the hard things that came from being in this group started happening, it was when my dad was away. And that's when this leader tried to step in as the leader in our family. I mean, and he was, in my opinion, brainwashing many, and he was trying to isolate people from, being out there, and living in some sense of what I would consider normalcy,
Yeah.
And so, um, that happened from the age of 7 to 12. And what eventually transpired is that my brother, my older brother, had to leave home
Okay.
because of what was being imposed. My dad had to take emergency leave because of things that were transpiring as a result of what our family was being exposed to. And this man was exposed by people who smartened up, said, no, I'm not going to be part of this unhealthy group of dysfunctionality, and this man's abuse. And so they went to the media in Billings, Montana, and he was exposed.
Okay.
And as a result of that, of course brought a lot of visibility into what was transpiring. And then that is when my mom and dad both agreed, either to end their marriage or to keep going forward. And they made the decision, my mom, to leave the group and to move on. And then my dad was stationed to another location. And so that helped us as we went through the healing process and the decommissioning of being exposed to this kind of trauma and all the things that transpired while we were in the group.
Okay, so I have a question. So was this more of a small local cult environment, or was it more, because I know you said media kind of got involved, was it more of a bigger cult?
No, it wasn't like, Jim Jones, or it was more, it started out, I think, with local friends, and then they moved and relocated, and these people moved and relocated. And then, it started, I would say probably there's about 10 families strong.
Okay. You know what's amazing, what I was hearing is this pattern that you hear with these type of leaders. It's a pattern. Their intentions always start off good, but along the way they get corrupted. It becomes tainted. And you mentioned Jim Jones, which I have studied forever. And one of his things was drugs. That kind of got him really messed up also. But It's just that they start off and they have these leadership skills because that's why people are drawn to them. So they have the charisma, right? They have this gift of leadership, but then you see the corruption comes in, and it's really scary because they still have that power of influence because they still have that gift, right?
Yes, yes.
They still have,
Yes.
yeah. Go ahead.
No, they just prey on the vulnerable. And I think with my mom being a baby Christian, she wasn't really affiliated with a church per se. She was just kind of growing, and, she was looking for community and friends. And, this man came out of the church. He actually went to Oral Roberts University. Okay. He got kicked out, of the traditional churches. And, I think that, there are a lot of people that proclaim to be Christians and they aren't, they're not. And,
Oh, yeah.
and I think with this man, he had a lot of bitterness. But I think he also was a very controlling individual anyway. And, this was his way of, I guess, I don't know, making his mark, and throwing the word of God and God under the bus through hurting people, and then the poor people that would join this group were people that were vulnerable, or, they didn't really know their mind. They didn't have strong mental strength.
Yeah.
And, that's the thing is they had low self-esteem, or not, or they were innocent and vulnerable, or, he just preyed on all.
Yeah.
And that's the part that just makes me very, very not happy when people do that to other people.
Yes, I'm there with you. I agree with you. When individuals who have this influence and they manipulate it and they take people for granted, and they always, as you stated, they almost can sense the vulnerability in a person, wherever it is.
Yes.
They can. They can.
They have their antennas up or something, but yes. And then they know how to manipulate people to reward them to do what they want to do, and then criticize them. And, I can tell you, my mom, he was not so good with kids, small kids, especially. And I remember, my mom leaving my sister and I, they offered to watch. My dad was overseas. My mom needed some extra help. And so we went to their house, and he was very harsh with my sister, my baby sister. And I remember really, not being happy about it. And I told my mom about it, and my mom got upset. And then he made a big sermon around my mom and tried to humiliate her because she was standing up for her, her daughter, her baby, and me. And, yet my mom, on the other hand, allowed his kids to be exposed to sexual violation, and so you just kind of go, what is in the minds of people, I mean, I tried to be two people. I tried to be who I needed to be, and I learned how to act. I learned how to, okay, I'm going to be this way here, and yet I'm going to be really who I am here, and I learned how to do that to be able to survive. And, that in itself was pretty traumatizing for a young child.
Exactly. How do you have two personalities to survive is conflicting and confusing. You're still developing.
Yes. Yes. And I wasn't alone, because there were quite a few other families, and they brought their kids, and then the kids were turning on the parents. And, I just saw the humiliation, and then him almost talking down to, anybody wanted to leave this group, or, not. It was quite an experience. And I did have to get a lot of extra help to, work through my emotional base, my mental health and all that as I got older, because it started affecting me, as I said, in a lot of different ways before I went through the healing that I needed.
Now, let me talk about that really quick, because on this podcast, I am so adamant about Christians getting outside help. I'm so adamant about that. There is this cliche in the church that if you need therapy, if you need some type of outside help, and they have this stigma on people as if you're weak, you don't have faith, all this craziness that I'm totally against, totally against. And so just briefly, just expound on how that process helped you, because of course you need it. And I think that if more of us were to be honest with ourselves and see that we're struggling in this area, love yourself enough, to share with someone that is professionally trained to help you process so that you can get, like you said, the healing comes in so many ways, right?
It
It comes
does.
in so many ways. And I think that we narrow it to just this one way, and that's not how it works. Wherever you can get that healing from, you need to get that. So if you can just like expound a little bit on that part of the process for you, because that's a major part for me. Understanding that, because as I stated, and I see in ministries and churches that it's like a taboo. It's already like that. It was like that a lot in society, but society now is understanding that it's a need. But in the church, it has always been, oh, if you have cancer, we'll pray for you and go ahead and get the treatment that you need. But if you have a mental health issue or something, it's like, it's different than with a
Yes.
cancer. You know what I'm saying? So,
Oh, yeah. No, I completely agree and concur with you. I wouldn't be on your show and supporting you 100%, because one of the things I can tell you is I was told, oh, God's enough,
right.
go ahead, he's going to help you through, and, all those things, which I totally agree and believe in. But when it comes to mental health and going through trauma and, all types of trauma,
Right.
I do believe that God does bring Christian therapists, Christian counselors, those people to come alongside you to help you through. And if it wasn't for the Christian counselor that I met with for months in Texas while I was living there, I had a complete breakdown.
Mhm.
And this was brought on by me taking some anxiety medicine, because I was dealing with anxiety and depression, and I would just come through a move, and I was going through, it's like if you're wounded and you're broken and you've got other stuff that happens, that's when it really gets bad and goes south.
Yeah.
And so I was taking drugs to try to medicate him, and I had a severe reaction to a Lexapro drug.
Okay.
And I had to go and get that taken care of. But then I was also encouraged to get some stress management counseling. And so that's when that Christian counselor and I sat down for months and months on end. And she helped me walk through the journey of healing and understanding what I'd been, traumatized by, and what I had encountered, and why I was having the problems I was having. And, that's when she first opened my eyes to the fact that I was actually abused sexually, and things that happened to me, and, what I needed to do, and the work I needed to do. And of course, then God opened doors for me to begin to share my story through women's groups, in safe places.
Mm-hmm.
And, then from there, he began to impress on me how important it is to share, so that other women could hear the struggle and also see the work that he had done, and how I could bring him glory through that, and then encourage them to also share their story of trauma or redemption, or where God came in. So anyway, that whole healing journey for me started out with the Christian counselor and therapist who helped guide me and get me through. And then I also had to work through the healing with my own family, and God had to show me Christians weren't all bad. I just hated Christians. I didn't want anything to do with them. I didn't want anything to do with Christianity at all. No organized church, no any of that.
Yeah.
And it took me quite a long time before God started using people to show me. And little by little, my trust started, coming. And then he was blessing me with so many other things. And then, of course, working for ministries and learning, that there are great people. He is a loving God, that there's evil in the world and how to discern. And, and then brought me to why I'm doing what I'm doing with the ministry of Altered Stories and helping women heal and, all over the world through these kinds of situations and circumstances through their story, sharing and telling. And that's my story. And I'm sticking to it.
I love your story. I do. I love your story. That's the truth. I do. And you know what? I have this saying that it came a long time ago, and it was that if the enemy can isolate you or me, he can destroy us. So that's why I do what I do, because I believe in exposing and showing other people that you're not alone. You're not alone. You're not the only one who is dealing with something that is life-changing. We all have these really difficult and challenging life moments, and some are more difficult than others. But, you still can, persevere, and you can push and get through, but we can't do it alone. We have to, come together, and we have to share one another, our testimonies, and let others know that you can make it, and encourage one another and uplift one another. And that's why I do what I do. So, to hear you say that, it's like, oh my goodness, like you're just saying everything that I completely believe in and try to teach as much as I can. And yours is even more important because you have such a one-on-one experience that, and other people would really cause them to pause. I mean, you could have given up. You could have said, I'm like you said, I'm done, and that's it. But, God is so merciful. He's so loving. He's so kind. He's giving you an opportunity to take this mess, right? All this mess and bring him glory and give you, the freedom that you deserve. And so, yeah, I love your story, and I'm so grateful that you have been able to share this story with my listeners. But I do want, before we conclude, for you to tell us a little bit more about your ministry now, and let us know how we can connect with you, so that if anyone wants you to come speak or share with their women, how can they do that?
Oh, that's precious, Mischelle. Thank you so much. You're so lovely. So alteredstories.org, www.alteredstories.org is my website. And it shares all the information out there about me and how to reach out if you want me to come speak to your women. And I do speak. I do a podcast guest appearances. I do a lot to help encourage women through my journey and encourage them in telling their story. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, social media. But, all those places are where we do have a presence, our ministry. And I do have this show, as I shared, Altered Stories show, and I share women's God stories. So, I've got women coming out of everywhere, all over, that want to share what God has done in their life for encouragement and blessing and building faith around the world. So I've got that going on. We've got our blog. We've got some other programs that we're hoping to roll out, getting ready to try to pull together a devotion for women that can, go through the stories and do some, healing through some of the writing and some ministering that God has through those stories. So we're working on a bunch of other things as we grow. We've only been around a little over 2.5 years. Okay. So we are kind of a baby ministry. I've got an Altered Story Ministry supporter page, and we do Bible studies and take prayer requests. And, we hope to do a women's conference. Oh, awesome. Called The Story Inside of You. We're hoping that will be one of the things that we can do too. So I want to do more boots on the ground kind of programs and helping women heal. My vision is to have a facility where women can come and they can just be alone with the Lord. Yes. They can write out their story, because that's really important. I really feel like, and we do help women we coach them through and help them write their stories too as they get ready to go on the podcast. So those are some of the services.
Okay.
And I do consulting on the side and help nonprofits as well, that need help in their development of, storytelling, or helping them use podcasting to reach others and through their messaging. So there's a lot there I'm doing. It's crazy. It's a great time of year for giving, and we need supporters and support and funding, just like all nonprofits. So we're looking at our Giving Tuesday campaign coming up at the end of the month.
Okay, so make sure that my listeners are hearing that. When you were talking, what I heard in my spirit is just, healing ministry. And once again, healing comes in so many, different ways. And when you were talking, all I kept hearing was healing. This ministry is just healing, and it's so powerful. And I'm so grateful that I'm able to connect with you at this point of it, because you probably get to a point that I probably won't be able to reach you. But right now, I'm so
I don't know, gal. God keeps me. Don't say that. You could be as massively big and God using you just like everyone else. You got the great heart.
Well,
and
thank you so much.
You do. And I love your message and what you're trying to do. Mental strength, friends, mental strength.
Yes.
Let the Lord help you keep your mental strength
Yes.
and your mind sound, which is what I love. Yes. Renewed mind.
Yes.
I love that about what you're doing. We got to have that.
We
we do need to not be afraid to reach out when we're struggling.
Yes.
That's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
And I love it. I love it so much. So I'm so grateful. And, whenever you want to come back or reach out to me in any type of form, please do so. I'm looking forward to keeping a connection with you. And I pray for your ministry, that God will continue to bless it and send the people that you need, and send the people who
Thank you. Resources. But yeah, God gave me this really cool dream. I'm going to tell you, Mischelle, he gave me a dream of a facility, and it's red brick. And it's hilly. And I walked through it, and there's a separate, I was like, whoa, God's, it's like a healing place. It's really bizarre. It's like it had waters in the back, and it's just really cool.
There you go. Confirmation.
He heard me heal.
He heard you. He gave you a confirmation. That's all I kept hearing. It's healing. So you got it. And I'm supporting you, and I'm praying for you constantly. Thank you so much thank you so much for being with us today. You have been listening to Renewed Mind Revolution podcast with your host, Mischelle Saunders, and our guest, Mischelle Saunders. God bless you guys. Remember that I love you, but most importantly, God loves you more. God bless.